I'm interested in watching the Aurora encounter now.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it in years.
They, at some point, maybe 2 years ago, they put it on streaming services. Someone did.
Yeah, I saw it was on Tubi or one of those. Let's go ahead and get started.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just throwing this on here, and then we'll be good.
Okay, guys. Well, so did any of you all put any questions up here? No?
No.
We'll leave that up there, so if something comes up. Oh, again with the mic. Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. Okay, let's see. Let's start with a question about religion. Who's taking that one? Okay, if aliens exist and have their own beliefs about God, would that clash with how we understand God here on Earth? And would our religious beliefs be affected?
Okay, well, I'll start off on that one. The relationship between the existence of extraterrestrials and our religious beliefs has always been a very interesting area of study, and many people have written about it and spoken about it. I have spoken to a lot of people who believe that the Bible and Scripture, it has enough leeway and it has enough references in the Bible to other people on other worlds that God has created, where we can believe that God created other beings on other planets. Now, I remember my mom always used to tell us kids that she strongly believed that God had created beings on other planets, but because humanity entered into a state of sin, that we would not be allowed to contact them or be contacted by them. That was her viewpoint. I just throw it out there because I've heard that repeated by UFO researchers who also are Christians or have a Christian viewpoint. But then there is another school that says that for people who are Christians, who say that aliens would actually be demonic in nature, and there's a whole school of thought. But the question as it was worded is, if we suddenly found out that extraterrestrials do exist and have visited our planet, how would that affect our religious beliefs? And interestingly enough, in the past couple of years, the Roman Catholic Church has released statements to the effect that, God their viewpoint now is that extraterrestrials could easily exist and still be covered under God's creation of the universe. So these are just some of my thoughts. I think it would impact people if the revelation ever came out. And one of the reasons that a lot of this stuff has been kept secret, supposedly, by the world's governments, is because of its impact on religious belief and how it might destabilize the world's civilizations. What are your thoughts on that, Dan?
Well, just to piggyback off your comment, I think the previous pope, I think it was, did say that he would baptize an alien. And I think that's kind of interesting. It's a sensational comment, but I think it just goes to show the ways in which we shift culturally have to be adapted with whatever the institution is. And I think that there have been studies that suggest the ways in which within society we have to adapt to things that are extremes that challenge us to be able to find how we can maintain the integrity of something that we bring from our heritage in a way that makes sense and it's can be utilized in a modern scope of time. So with religion, I mean, most all of religion is based on non-human ideas and concepts influencing people's lives. And then you have like a compass of morals and things and history to go with that. But the idea, I think, itself, for people who would be challenged by it in some way, I think, as you mentioned, there is a contingent of people who would demonize the idea of UFOs and aliens, not because of what we would actually find them to be, but because it sits so far outside of the paradigm of a certain kind of worldview that it threatens to challenge it. And I think that really incites confirmation bias, and that people usually try to build ideas that suit their view of things in a way that's comfortable. So sometimes we deal with things that aren't comfortable. And one thing I would just say is that everyone's probably heard of the term paradigm shift. So that comes about from a man named Thomas Kuhn, who wrote a book called The Structure of Scientific Revolutions. And he said that it's out of crisis that we have a paradigm shift. And so, crisis doesn't always mean a bad thing, but it's a major turning point of events. And I think that it would have to be something that and people suggest the idea of disclosure being a big societal shift of things. Well, if we have anything to do with helping to orient society in a constructive direction that's not going to become like civil unrest, and I would hope it would be done in a way that's not going to be some big revealing thing that's going to cause chaos, and disrupt society. You would hope that maybe we could do it in a way that's going to help elevate the standard of awareness with this topic so as to not disturb people, and maybe do it in small increments if we can help it. And that is if we really can help it, versus the others demonstrating themselves, whatever they are or what they're going to do. Because we wouldn't be able to really probably control that so much as anything else.
I want to hear Steve's opinion on this. Steve, if suddenly it were revealed that aliens really do exist and have been visiting us, how would that affect people's religious beliefs?
Well, I think if you think of the history of the world, religious beliefs have changed over many times, depending, and I don't know if it has to do with science or our knowledge of the universe, how it's changed with advancements in science from the times of the first early thinkers, scientific thinkers. The center that the Earth is no longer the center of the solar system. They figured out that the sun was, and now with all these new telescopic images we're getting from the Webb, Hubble and the Webb satellites, we're seeing farther and farther and farther into space, and that we're finding out that space is endless. There isn't, when you talk about space, but the distances between galaxies is tremendous, and that God created just one world, and then we see that there's billions. I was always taught that God created worlds without end, and we're seeing that now, that there's trillions of stars and billions of galaxies. And so there's got to be, we can't, human beings cannot be the only beings out there. I think that God, my own opinion is that God has created other worlds, and that other worlds are inhabited by them. And of course your belief, and also in the afterlife, what happens to us after death. Well, they talk about where you're going to go, to paradise or to hell or whatever. Well, those obviously are different worlds than we can see in our earthly bodies. So I think it will change the way people think about religion, and I think it's constantly changed since early civilizations. You've seen different religions come and go. You see different religions fighting against each other over their own beliefs. So I think it will make a change.
Thank you, Steve. We're ready for our next question.
Okay, so if aliens existed, do you think that we'd be able to accept them as a society, and would we be able to coexist with them?
Well, that's an interesting story. It's kind of a continuation of how would we react from a religious point of view. This one is how would we react and how would we either accept them or not accept them as a society. And so, there's similarities. But, there's a theory out there which I find very interesting, that the modern media for years has been trying to acclimatize or social engineer the masses of people into accepting images of extraterrestrials coming to the earth for a reason that we don't know the reason. But we know that the preponderance, we were watching the Super Bowl commercials, and there were several commercials that featured extraterrestrials, by the way. Some kid getting sucked out a window by a UFO while drinking a Dr. Pepper or something, and several others. So we know the movies. There's been so many movies about ETs, commercials, media, social media. It's an interesting theory. I don't know what the other two panelists might think about this, but that are we being acclimatized as a society or social engineered to be more accepting of ET, so that when an ET event comes, whether it's real or not, we are more likely to accept them as being ETs, whether they are or not.
I'll just say quickly, because it does seem to kind of go off of that last question a little bit, and I think social engineering is a good point. It sounds like a scary idea, but that's exactly what everything we do in society kind of helps gear towards, because a lot of things happening suddenly or spontaneously can cause a lot of difficult things in society, whereas if you take a more gradual approach over generational changes, that seems to be a little easier to acclimate to tough, big changes. Just like the energy situation, we can't just suddenly stop doing everything we're doing with fossil fuels and petrol and stuff like that to just switch to everything all at once. That philosophically sounds great, but realistically it would upend so much about our own society. So there has to be a gradual thing, I think, to take place so that we don't end up completely messing things up. So I think along the same lines with this, and I'll just say that a lot of it would depend on, if we're dealing with a civilization that can somehow express themselves to us in a way that's representative of people like we are, and that we can infer that they have a society, at least enough of a society like us, that we have similar qualities, that it would probably be more dependent upon them, their decision to integrate into us or us into them. I mean, if they're able to get here, then it's really a matter of if they want to be integrated into our world, and the fact that we're not right now, I think, is a bit suggestive that maybe either there are reasons why there's no open, it's very overt. All of these situations, sightings, cases, experiences, they're all very like clandestine almost. It's very strange that we don't have open contact. We don't have open world acknowledgement of something other. We have individuals who claim that these things are real, that they believe it, or they know it, but we don't have a large scale basis through which we can have full acknowledgement that yes, we are in the midst of a reality in which we are integrated. And I would just say that it poses a challenge to us to realize that there are intelligences or people, for the sake of it being acknowledged as a society, that they have probably a greater capacity of reality management than we do, and that does play into the whole religious concept as well a little bit. So I think there's some growing pains, and history shows us that when two civilizations interact, a lot of times they become assimilated, and we would have to we'd probably face some degree of assimilation culturally, not physically, hopefully, but just in some way we'd have to integrate, understanding that that there are implications when it comes to not just acknowledging it exists, but to literally integrate that into our world. I think is a different direction. And I think all those things you mentioned, media, pop culture, helps to sensitize us to those things as well.
Any thoughts on that one, Steve?
Well, I tend to get the mic and then start talking too long. I think from your stories about some of the people being abducted by aliens, it could be a very scary thing. And also, how much do they look and appear like us? A lot of times when we see something different, we'd be frightened by that because they don't look, maybe act or behave like us. So I think it could be a traumatic thing to us if it's got a lot of shock value too. And also, you know, why are they here? Are they here to observe us, or you know, those kinds of questions to be answered.
Okay, we can probably do a couple more.
Steve actually got into the next question, or a part of it, of like, what do aliens want? Are they hostile, or why are they visiting us?
Yeah, that's good, because when Steve said that, I wanted to follow up on that, but we want to keep faithful to the time. So what is the alien agenda? You know, Jim Marrs wrote this famous book, The Alien Agenda, and different people over the years have had different interpretations of what it is that these extraterrestrial visitors have been coming to Earth. Some people say since the creation of our race, which, by the way, they may have had a hand in or somehow influenced, some people believe. But what has been their intent? They seem to be very standoffish. They don't want to be generally known. They avoid large population centers. Most of the encounters with UFOs and their occupants happen in remote, out-of-the-way places to isolated groups of people or individual people. They don't want to be generally known by society. They prefer to go about whatever agenda they're working on unknown and unseen by the general population. Some people suggest that they are in collaboration with some of the world's governments in maintaining their secrecy. Because otherwise, why has there been so much resistance over the decades to releasing information that would confirm their existence upon our planet? So this is all interesting speculation, but by observable behaviors, what I always tell people, you observe what their behavior has been based on testimony from people that have encountered them. And they appear to have a scientific, non-personal, they have a desire not to become involved in human affairs other than to look at them scientifically, categorize them, collect samples, for some reason that we don't know at this time. They're observers of our race, possibly, again, since the beginning of our species.
I'll just mention quickly that I think it would be a gold mine for anthropology. I mean, every scientific discipline really, but even in contemporary sciences, you have two big proponents for extraterrestrial life. Carl Sagan, who helped with the Voyager project to try to give anyone else out there a heads up that we are here to express our cultural and history within a plaque, basically, and include music and art and things like that. So he was a proponent to help to establish some kind of meaningful contact. Whereas someone else who's also a major scientific figure, Stephen Hawking, actually was like a proponent to not do that, and would actually say that we shouldn't be like letting anyone else out there know that we're here, because we don't know who is out there, we don't know their motives. There are articles out there that suggest that altruism is not a universal quality, and that we could be dealing with highly predatory species or anything. And we can see just on the things here on Earth, the vast array of flora and fauna. So I would just say that Of course, all people are different, all individuals are different. We can collectively band together and try to have a set of values. But I would say that if we got to the point to having any acknowledgement in very serious ways that there are others, that they do exist in a societal form that has concrete values that are at least enough like ours that we can engage and work with, that it would be a huge thing for anthropology, for us to know more, not just about them, but about ourselves and our own place in the universe. Because the idea is that certain civilizations can't get past a certain place in their development, and if they can, then they might be a certain way. And so we could be dealing with many groups, many motives, and like you said, just this idea has been around for a long time. What is the alien agenda? And it helps, I think, not just make us wonder about them, but help us wonder more about ourselves as well, and how we can move forward in life, realizing that regardless if we do know or not that we aren't alone, that we're still here and we still have to deal with ourselves. And so it helps, I think, become more introspective in that regard.
Thank you, Daniel. Any thoughts on what the alien agenda is, Steve?
Well, again, like kind of repeating what you say, we have scientists that go out and study different animals, whether it's elephants or insects or plants or whatever, and how one species of animal disappears from the earth, how it changes the whole ecology of the earth, and how it affects other animals, plants, and stuff. And if one little thing happens to the earth, does it affect not only our earth, but does that affect the whole, solar system or the galaxy? So they could be here observing us to make sure that we're not destroying our planet, which could destroy, if there's a chain reaction of life. Maybe they're observing us to see how well we take care of our planet.
Okay, the library staff wants us to surrender the room to them by 5:30, so we'll probably do one more question, and then we'll wrap it up after that.
We can do two more. I'm gonna do one, a really short one.
Do a really short one.
Yeah, somebody asked about a CE5 group, and so I didn't mention that earlier, but CE5 is, or I did actually, but when groups get together and try to invite contact. And so I don't personally know of a CE5 local group, but...
There was one at the last meeting here.
Oh, really?
There's like 2 or 3 of them that they've been meeting up.
Oh, okay.
But if you get the app, it will tell you where they're at, and they'll tell you where they're meeting.
Okay, so whoever asked that, there's the answer. I do know of another group though, that's local, MUFON FR6. And so look us up on Facebook and come to our meetings and help us investigate and document and grow this group in the valley. Speaking of documentation, let me just see a photo really quick of everybody. Okay. Okay, and over here with the panel. Alright, sorry guys. Next question. Let's see. What do you guys think about everything that's been happening with Lou Elizondo? Recent developments with his, sorry, I lost the question, but yeah. Recent developments happening with his evidence that turned out to not be.
Okay, Lou Elizondo is a former military intelligence person who had been tasked with investigating unidentified aerial phenomenon. And of course, while he was in his military service, he was not able to speak, but once he retired or left, then he started making all these interesting claims about stuff he had seen, documents he had seen. He's been involved in a number of media projects disclosing information about UAPs, UFOs. I personally haven't followed his career that much. That's basically, I know that we've tried to get him to the Edinburgh UFO conference several times, and so far he's not been willing to come down here. Daniel, do you know very much about Lou's projects?
So I'll just say that I have met him a few times, and people online will say all kinds of things. It's easy to gravitate towards things that we like, that sound nice and we want to be true, which again falls into confirmation bias. I would be very weary of anyone with a background in intelligence, specifically counterintelligence, coming forward and making any claims at all, first off. But it's important to, by saying that, also followed by saying, pay attention. I think it's all the media things that are happening right now. It is, for the common person, probably not much of anyone here, but like anyone who's not really following on with UFOs, that can be very sensational for them to hear about why are the congressional hearings, why are there so many taxpayer dollars being used to talk about these crazy ideas, right? So I think that it's concerning for some people to think that there's so much attention and focus and resources being brought to this. The reality is that Lou was brought into a public congressional hearing last year, and that nothing was really shown to the public or to Congress there, but that almost all of them said that they needed to be brought into a SCIF, which is a secure, basically like private environment where nothing can be recorded or anything. And they had actually just recently were attempting to hold another SCIF, and everyone that was supposed to be involved suddenly was sick and not able to do that, which is interesting and convenient, I guess. So I would just say follow along with what Lou and whoever else is saying. Don't just believe them because we want these things to be true. I think it would be amazing if all of these claims were actually the case. But the challenge is that they know people who know something about it, and I think that's where it's just one of those. I will just say really quickly, the whole idea of like the mystery mummy, Mexican mummy type thing, everyone's kind of in a fiasco about that. One of the things that I heard someone say was that at least they showed bodies, at least they showed something that people can actually see and that can be scientifically verified or not. And with what we're doing in the U.S. Congress, we don't have something to lay out on the table for people to see. If they do have something that's not being shown and it's being discussed in closed hearings. So just keep in mind that there's a lot happening, and that there will continue to be more people coming forward, more whistles blown, so to speak, but also information that we should just pay attention to and just weigh in a way that is in reference to everything that's going on, and that could happen.
That's a very valid point Daniel makes. Just because someone has been in the military or in intelligence services, we don't necessarily believe them when they come out and say UFOs really exist, I saw evidence. Because they cannot share that evidence with us. And if they share that evidence with us, they could get in serious trouble, as David Grush said during his congressional testimony. Steve, do you have any thoughts on that? We'll hear from Steve and then we'll wrap it up.
No, I think what you've said is true. It's like me, I believe it. When I see it, I'll believe it. But if they only show you a tiny bit of what is there, then you're only seeing the small portion of what is actually.
And worse yet, they don't even show you anything. They talk about having seen something. And back when I was in intelligence, I saw something. I can't share it with you. I can't show it to you, but I saw it. So we appreciate everybody coming out. We're planning to have more of these here, hopefully. And so we hope you'll stay tuned. And thanks again, everyone. We appreciate your participation today. That's pretty cool.